All right. Well, there's been a lot going on since you and I have last talked.
A lot, Greg. Yeah, we've had a lot going on.
You have. I think last time we visited was right after the primary. Obviously, the general campaign, your election, State of the Union. Going back to your Senate campaign, what did you learn from voters that you didn't know before that was important to Iowans?
What I learned, I think the most significant point that I took away is that Iowa voters want to be recognized as people. They are individuals, and they want to know that their elected officials care about them. And it didn't matter where I went, who I spoke with. They just wanted to be recognized and know that their concerns are being heard. And even on some subjects, even though we may not agree, they just wanted to know somebody was there listening to them and taking that to heart. So I felt really good about that, and really the 99 county tour. I mean, that's one way to stay in touch with all of those great people, and they appreciated that very much.
Now, if an individual is shaped by their experiences, you've experienced quite a bit in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yes.
How have you changed from that first campaign when you ran for Montgomery County Auditor to who you are today?
Well, I had never run for office before when I ran for county auditor. And it started out as just a group of people that were really concerned about the county, and we all came together and we were all sitting there stuffing envelopes together and just doing a lot of busy work together. But running for federal office and everything that I've learned through that, it becomes much more intense, obviously, as you move up through the levels. We went through the county, then the state, campaigns and debates, and then moving on to the federal level. Very, very challenging. But learning overall that it's still important to remain true to who you are, and share with folks your ideas. And again, maybe not agree with everybody, but you can't be somebody who you're not. So just stay true to who you are, and that just became even more important as I progressed through the different types of campaigns.
Is that more hard now? Is that more difficult?
Actually, I am feeling much more comfortable with who I am as we've gone through this process. Through the debate process, you really figure out where you stand on a number of issues. And I was fairly confident going through the federal campaign for United States Senate, I think because I felt so comfortable with who I was at that point. And recognizing that if Iowans don't agree with the stances that I have, then that's okay. They're making that decision, but I need to be true to who I am.
You're in town now. You're in town a lot. You haven't distanced yourself too much from Montgomery County. People approach you differently?
Oh, well, I have to say it's funny because so many friends and acquaintances throughout the community, they will come up and they're like, what do we call you now? And that catches me off guard, and I'm like, well, it's Joni. You call me Joni. And that's what they've always called me. I don't expect anything different now, and I love it. I do need to budget a little more time when I go to the grocery store because I do get stopped a lot, and people are just really interested in the process, and they want to know what it's like, and so it's great to be able to share those experiences with everybody. This doesn't happen every day, and I'm always happy to give that time. My time at home is precious, but they're part of who I am. So
right, absolutely. Do you encounter any hostility? People who are maybe take issue with?
Certainly I do, and not necessarily from this community, but there are people out there that they don't agree with maybe my ideas or my positions, and some of them are very open about that. And You know, I would not treat somebody that way.
Right.
That's not who I am.
Right.
I'm respectful of other people's opinions. But you know what, I am in a position of leadership, and if that's how they feel, then that's okay.
Sure.
That's okay.
So, okay, let's move up to the election day. Election day rolls around. Most polls had you leading, various sizes of margin of victory. Des Moines Register, I had it kind of basically as a toss-up. You go down to the fire station, you cast your ballot there Tuesday morning. What are your expectations at that minute? I mean, are you?
I felt confident. I felt confident that I would come out as the victor in the election and go on to represent the people of Iowa. I did feel very good, and so it was a nerve-wracking day, I guess, just because I felt good about it, but I didn't know if the rest of Iowa felt good about it.
Right.
So it was really important that I was able to finish a 24-hour tour. We've been out on the road for 24 hours, making stops every couple of hours across the state of Iowa in different communities, and to make that last stop here in Red Oak, where I actually went in and was able to cast my ballot. Again, you know, a little nervous, but I felt good, and I knew that at that point I had done everything I possibly could do to win the election. So at that point, it was all out of my hands, and I just had to let the people of Iowa go out to their polling places and express their opinion.
Those last few hours, that 24-hour tour, what are you doing at 3 in the morning?
Oh my goodness, we're stopping at a Perkins in Sioux City. We stopped at a Casey's in the middle of the night and had Casey's Pizza, which was a favorite of mine on the campaign trail. So just going out to these places throughout the evening and night, and I was amazed at the number of people that actually came out at 3 o'clock in the morning to Perkins to greet us and greet us with signs, and just the enthusiasm was really evident all across the state.
Now, you won the election by a lot, which represented kind of a national trend.
Yes.
The GOP regaining control of the Senate pretty easily. Do you think, obviously you weren't there before, but talking with your colleagues, do you think, has this humbled the Democrats at all? Do you think, are they a little more easier to deal with today because of that?
I don't know about that, Greg, and you would have to ask the Democrats. I think that the people all across the United States spoke pretty clear about what they wanted to see in Washington, D.C., the type of actions they wanted Congress to take. I don't know that that's changed any minds. But I am happy to say, though, that with the new Republican majority, we're actually working on legislation on the United States Senate floor, which is something the Democrats haven't been able to do for a number of years now under Senator Reid's leadership. And 2 bills that have already been signed into law by the president, which were supported almost unanimously, the terrorism risk insurance bill that we approved at the beginning of the session, and the Clay Hunt Veteran Suicide Prevention Act was another one. Both of those pieces of legislation were from last year, but they weren't brought up for a vote. And so even though I think Senator Reid was trying to protect his members, he did them a great disservice because they weren't able to stand up for their constituents in their home states and vote for legislation that meant a lot to them. And this year we're doing that. Republicans and Democrats are working on legislation on the floor of the Senate. It's important that we do that.
Right. Now, once you get elected and you're sworn in, you're in the most powerful legislative body in the world. How many times did you stop and look around and just kind of soak it in? And like, oh my gosh, how did I get here?
I don't know that I've had a lot of time to even absorb it, and that's okay though. One thing I've said to a number of people is that, they're like, hey, Joni, has it sunk in? You're a United States Senator. And no, I don't think it's sunk all the way in, and I hope it never does. Because just being from Iowa and being from this community, this is what's real to me. Living in that bubble out there, that's not reality. I take this job very seriously, but it is my job to represent the interests of the people in Iowa. So, you know, I'm an Iowan living in DC Monday through Friday. You know, but I'm still an Iowan, and I hope, you know, I am in awe. I am in awe of the meaning of Congress and the significance of serving in the United States Senate, and understanding that it is a very powerful body. So again, the enormity of that, I have internalized that, but at the same time recognizing that this is who I am, this is where I'm from, and voters sent me to DC to take Iowa out there, not bring DC back to Iowa. So I really hope that that does not become the reality. This is the reality here at home.
So about 20 minutes after Joe Biden calls you Gail, you're being asked to deliver the Republican response to the State of the Union. It might be a little longer than 20 minutes, but pretty quickly. Now, you stated early in your speech you wanted to focus on what the Republican Party wanted to do.
Right.
Focus on your agenda, focus on your goals, more than what the president had just said. Did anybody take anything away from that speech that didn't have to do with camo shoes and red bags?
I hope so. I do hope so. But I think the bread bag story, I think, really resonated across the United States. And I got a lot of great feedback. Of course, people were poking fun at it, and which, you know, lighthearted. I get it. I get it. But yet, what we were trying to do is tell a story that so many of us understand, the way that we grew up and the way our neighbors grew up. We are frugal people. We grew up in difficult times, and you know, we didn't know it as kids. You know, I just knew that my mother had a drawer filled with bread bags, and they had many uses, and that was one of them. So we were really the original recyclers, I think, in using those bread bags. But I've had so many people come up to me, and it doesn't matter where I am. I can be in DC at the Capitol building, and the staffer will come up and say, oh my gosh, you took me back to the 70s, and that's the way I was raised in Tennessee or wherever. And so many people across Iowa have said the same, and they'll say, well, we wore the bread bags just today, earlier at one of my stops. They said, well, we wore bags over our shoes. And I said, well, or under our shoes, or inside the boots. And I said, well, we did it because we were trying to keep them clean. And not get messed up. And he's like, well, we wore them over too, but we wore them on the inside. So it really brings up some interesting conversations, and it's a way of breaking the ice too. I think people understand that I'm a human being. I come from a real family.
You talked a lot about family during that speech, and a lot of people forget that you're a human being. A lot of leaders, that's part of the disconnect with us and our federal leaders especially, is that we are, you are people. And your family became a focus for critics during the campaign, after that speech. Did that surprise you? Did that take you back, or did you kind of anticipate that this is kind of part of the game?
Well, it bothers me, but again, I know that there are people out there, and they want to be critical of anything I do. You know, I've even said I could be Mother Teresa, and they would probably find fault with me. That's their opinion, that's their thought process. I have a wonderful family. I have a very supportive family, and they've been just terrific through this whole thing. And I would like to insulate them as much as possible from public scrutiny. But I wish people would understand that we are normal families, just like every other family out there across Iowa or across the United States. You know, I work with a lot of other senators that are grandparents, and they want to get home on the weekends and spend time with their grandchildren. They are mothers of young children, both Democrats and Republicans. There are a number of us women that get together and visit about the challenges of being moms and serving in the United States Senate. But we're all real people.
So have you talked to the president since you didn't take his phone call?
Actually, yes.
How'd that conversation go?
I did talk to him later that evening.
Okay.
So I did talk to him later that evening. And he did host a reception for new members at the White House several weeks ago. And so I was able to go through the receiving line and visit with him. And he was very gracious. He remembers Iowa very fondly.
Yeah, I bet
and
he does.
thanks many Iowans for their support. So, yes.
So have you got an office yet?
I have a transitional
You have a
office.
transitional office.
I should have a permanent office, hopefully in June.
June?
Yes. So the way it works in the United States Senate, it's based on seniority.
Mhm.
And so those that are the highest ranking, most senior elected officials or senators in this case, they choose their office space, and of course, as more senior senators retire, that opens up some really nice views, larger spaces. So some of those coveted office areas will be occupied by the more senior members. Senator Grassley, he loves where he is. He says, "Don't even bother calling me. I'm staying here." But I'm number 97, so I'm down at the bottom of the pile, and I'll get pretty much what's left over, and that's okay because I'm happy to be where I am.
So you don't think taking the phone call to the most powerful man in the world would have helped you get an office?
No, probably not. Probably not. No, I don't think so. I don't think he could have helped there.
If I had asked you 6 weeks into your career as an Iowa senator, what your long-term political goals were, what would your answer have been?
Iowa senator, not a United States senator.
Wouldn't have even shown up. Wouldn't have even been a blip. Well, now you're about 6 weeks into your career as a U.S. senator. What's your answer to that question today?
United States senator. United States senator.
So there's no chance seeing you on a presidential ballot.
I will never say never, but not anytime soon. And I can't envision that. So I can't even go there. No. Being on a statewide campaign is tough, and it was a hard-fought campaign season for everyone involved, not just me, but for everyone involved. And I can't envision that. So no, 6 weeks in, and I'm happy where I am.
But you do admit, 6 weeks into Iowa Senate, you never would have envisioned this
No,
either, right?
No, I would not. No, you're right. No, I wouldn't have.
You've talked about your role in the 2016 presidential election, that you want to help connect the candidates with the voters.
Yes.
What form will that take?
It could be any manner of speaking, whether I field individual calls from candidates, just asking, well, who are the party activists? Who should I reach out to? I am happy to provide that information, no matter who the candidate is. I want to open my arms and say, come to Iowa. Visit with the people here in Iowa. I think that's really important. So whether it's just fielding the phone calls, I do have a roast and ride that will be in June, and so we have opened up that opportunity for the candidates to come meet those Iowans that are coming out to the roast and ride. So it provides a venue for them to walk around and just hear some of the thoughts and ideas from Iowa voters. Whether it's sitting down with them and talking about agricultural issues, things that are important to Iowans, any number of ways, we will welcome them here. And it won't just be Republican candidates that are coming through. We will have Democratic candidates coming through as well. So no matter who they are, we want to make sure that Iowans have the opportunity to reach out to them and visit and find out what their stances are on issues that are important to Iowans.
Some of the things that you've talked about, you've already been active in the first 6 weeks. Not been a lot of idle time there in D.C.
No idle time. No idle time.
The Keystone Pipeline
Came
up right away and has been passed and sent to the president's desk. How does that benefit Iowans?
With the construction jobs, obviously there will be some residual permanent jobs afterwards in maintaining that pipeline, but those construction jobs and having the opportunity to bid on those jobs, and that fuels our economy and any spin-off industry, whether you're someone that provides electrical wiring or whatever it might be. those contractors will need supplies. They will need the types of things to build the pipeline. So, I mean, all of these industries are going to benefit in our area because it would be coming through Nebraska, through the Midwest. There's opportunity for Iowans there. I know lately many Democrats have said, well, these are just construction jobs.
Right.
Construction jobs are jobs, and most contractors I know that those jobs aren't permanent. And they bid on a job, they work on a job, and then they move on to the next job. And it's great income for these families. And I think it's not only providing jobs now, but jobs for the future, providing infrastructure for developing other, natural resources. So let's develop American energy and focus on those types of projects. But I think it would be very beneficial to those in the Midwest.
What about concerns with the aquifer out there, the Ogallala Aquifer, and compromising it?
Our own Department of State has said there is minimal environmental impact. So, and that's coming from President Obama's administration.
Now, you've also, along with I think every other Republican senator, co-sponsored a bill to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act.
Yes.
You've also co-sponsored in the last week bills to modify parts of Obamacare. Are there parts of it that you think are worth saving? Is there, if it was repealed today, what parts would you pull out of it?
There are pre-existing conditions is something that most certainly had to be taken care of. And I have a great friend who has a son with leukemia, and knowing that he has that condition, we want to make sure that individuals, whether it's diabetes, cancer, those conditions, making sure that they are able to get coverage. That is really important. There are those that, for whatever reason, cannot afford insurance. Certainly, we've seen the expansion of Medicaid across the United States. I think there need to be certain levels of when you look at income, making sure that we're protecting those individuals. We need to focus on those that are most vulnerable in our population. But we also need to look at businesses and how can we assist them in providing the types of insurance products that their employees would benefit from. So there's a lot of things that we can do. Repealing Obamacare has been important to me, but ensuring that we are replacing it is important also to protect the most vulnerable in our population. Ensuring that young adults can stay on their parents' policies, but that's something that Iowa already offered. We already offered that opportunity. So that was a solution we already had in place, and many other states can do that also. But and I have said this even through the campaign season, if we're repealing Obamacare, it has to be replaced, but we can do it with other solutions.
Your colleague from Nebraska, Senator Fisher, has followed through on her campaign promise to co-sponsor a bill to impose term limits in Congress. Is there any chance that ever happens?
Well, and I support that initiative too. I don't know, Greg, I don't know, because there are those that will push back and say, and I've heard this argument, and in some ways it probably is a valid argument, that if you impose term limits and you have a House member or a Senate member that's serving 2 terms, 3 terms, and then they're sent back home, really the power is then lying in the bureaucracy that's in Washington, D.C. You will have lobbyists that are very influential. There's no term limits on lobbyists. They will be there forever. You will have different organizations that are controlling the different departments that are out there. You really won't have a consistency in oversight. However, I do believe that once you've been away from home for a long period of time, again, you start to lose touch with what's going on in your home communities. And that's why I believe term limits are important.
One more question then. Tell your Montgomery County friends here, one funny, unique story, something from Washington, D.C. that someone with a first-hand experience, maybe it's a funny story about Ted Cruz or Mitch McConnell or whatever the case may be. Tell us something that you've seen out there that struck you.
Well, oh gosh, I guess I'll go back to giving the response to the President's State of the Union. Whenever I'm asked to stay behind somewhere, I think I've done something wrong and I'm going to be reprimanded. And so when our freshman class met with Leader McConnell, it was during an orientation process. We all sat down with him. Afterwards, we were all getting up to leave, and his chief of staff came over and said, "Senator Ernst, the leader would like to see you for a moment. Can you stay behind, please?" And I was terrified. I thought, I have done something wrong. And I started to replay everything in my mind. What have I said? What have I done? And I sat down, and she closed the door. We sat down, and the leader said, "Senator Ernst, Speaker Boehner and I have selected you to give the Republican address after the State of the Union." And it floored me. If I couldn't speak, I was so honored to have that opportunity. But again, I'm just so conscientious of making sure that I am doing the right thing. And I was like, oh man, I'm being reprimanded already. I've only been here a short period of time and I'm being reprimanded. But it is funny. I have to say, Senator Rubio, we remember when he gave the response and reaching for the bottle of water. And his advice to me was, Joni, just drink lots of water before, not during the speech. But they have a sense of humor. Senators have a sense of humor, and that's one thing that is really, really exciting to know, is that they're people. They're people.
Well, very good. Well, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.